All right, so this week we are going to talk about organizing your content flow. So this is our third core publisher training. On our agenda for this week, we're going to do a quick introduction to categories and tags in Core Publisher. We're then going to talk about creating and managing your categories, tags, and topic pages. And we're going to finish off by talking about managing your RSS feeds and podcasts. So last week's training, we talked about how to create pieces of content, pages, static pages, program pages, people pages. And now we're starting to talk about how to organize other pieces of content. We already discussed how you can organize some of those static pages and other sorts of pages in your navigation and your footer. But now we're going to start to talk about how to manage your how your posts or your news articles will be organized. So in our first module, let's just take a look at the idea of categories, tags, and topic pages in Core Publisher. So we're going to talk about posts in the next training, but we just wanted to lay the foundation now for how those things are organized. So when you create a new post in Core Publisher, you're going to give each post one category and multiple relevant tags. So you're going to have one post, one category, multiple tags. And those categories and tags in Core Publisher, they allow you to create mini rivers or like aggregation pages. So each category and tag will have its own separate aggregation page. So when you think of how they're related, you're going to have one main category, and then you'll have multiple tags under that one category that are all somewhat related. And the way that topic pages work is that topic pages are aggregations of tags. So you can take multiple related tags and pull all content with those tags into one topic page. So let's take a look at a real life example of that. So let's say, for example, that you have a category that is regional news. This is where you're putting all of the posts that have the category regional news. But they may have multiple tags. Even though it is a regional news post, it may be about transportation or charter schools or state house or mayoral race. Under the category of regional news, you'll have multiple tags. And what you can choose to do, for example, if local education reform is a really hot topic in your area and you want to create like a little blog or an aggregation page where you can take all of the content that has to do with local education reform and put that in one place and promote that on air and online. You can take all of the content with the tags, school districts, charter schools, and higher education, for example, and funnel them all into one local education reform topic page. Same sort of thing with local politics. You can take all of your posts with the tags, mayoral race, council representatives, and state house, and pull them all into one topic page called local politics. And we'll talk more about these different ways to organize content throughout the slides, but I just wanted to give a graphical representation of the relationship between your categories, tags, and your topic pages. So that is module one. We just talked about categories, tags again, and topic pages. Oh, just as a reminder for your workflow note, each post that you create is going to have one category and multiple related tags. Looks like we don't have any questions from this module, so we're going to move on to module two. Now we're going to just talk about how to create categories. So in this module, we're going to introduce categories, talk about how to create and manage them, and then also just look at category pages. So when you are thinking about categories, you want to think about your local newspaper. So when you open up your local newspaper, I'm sure that you have multiple sections in your paper. You'll have maybe arts and culture, politics, maybe a real estate section, perhaps a section on education. And those will be specific sections of your newspaper. So if, for example, you were looking for information about school closings, you would know to go to the education section. And in the same way, if you were looking for information about a new play that had come to town, you would know to go to your arts and culture section. And that's how you want to think about organizing your web content, your posts in your core publisher site. You want to create categories that make it easy for your web visitors to locate what they're looking for. Um, you are going to be manually creating your categories. We're going to go through how to do that right now. And you can always add new categories to your site at any time. So even if right now, as you're building out your site, you maybe have 2 or 3 categories that you want to focus on. But as you start to work with your core publisher site when it's live, or as new things come up in your local area, you can always create new categories. And when you're thinking about what category should you have on your site, you want to consider 2 things. The first is, what topics does your station focus on? Does your station focus more on local news, or more on maybe music or culture focused news, entertainment focused news? And then the second thing, which some can say is most important, is what topics are important to your listeners and web visitors. What do people listen to your station for? Are they listening to your station because they know that your station is going to have the up to date news on local music and local happenings? Or do they come to your station because they know that you're going to have the most up to date information about local happenings in your area around politics or education, for example? So some best practices when you're creating categories, they should be 1 to 2 words max. Things like arts and culture, finance, business and science, environment, things like that. Um, and they should be the broadest way to capture your content. So think about, what are the broadest ways to capture the thing that you are referring to um, with the category. And in terms of the number of categories that you're going to be creating, 5 is great, 10 is too many. Again, you want to go back to that comparison to a newspaper. If you were again looking for information on the most on a new play that had come to town, and there was an arts section, an arts and culture section, a culture section, an entertainment section, and a theater section, you would not necessarily know where to go to look for that information. So you want to again make sure you're using broad terms for your categories. Looks like we had a question. I'm just reading the question. Sorry, my audio did not go out just now. Um, so I see this question. I'm going to hold off on this, and we'll get to that as we go throughout the training. So when you go to create a category, you're going to start out at that Configure Core Publisher page. So let's all log into our sites now and take a look at actually creating categories. For this exercise, we're going to create 2 categories. So this is our first exercise of the webinar. We're going to be creating 2 new categories on our Core Publisher site: environment and local environment. And these are categories that you can delete once we're done with the webinar. We're just going to do this for our exercise today. So let's create 2 categories. I'm going to hop into our site, and at the same time, I'm going to ask you all to log into your Core Publisher sites. So here I am. I am in our test site, and I just logged in. So I am on our Configure Core Publisher site page. Under Content Management, this is where you're going to see Manage Categories. So I'm going to click on that. And you'll notice that there are already some categories there. These were built by default as a part of your core publisher site. You're welcome to use these, or you can choose to just delete or ignore ones that you don't necessarily want to use. But for this, we're going to create a new category. So we're going to do add term. I'm going to open mine in a new tab because we're going to be creating 2. I recommend that you do the same as well. You're always going to click on add term to create a new term. And we're going to call our term local environment. And I'm going to spell environment correctly. So in the name field, that's where you're going to put what you want your category to be called. We do recommend using proper capitalization because this is front facing. Your web visitors will see it. In the description area, you can choose to put a description of your category. For example, something like, up and coming local news about the environment or up to date news about the environment. You can choose to put a description. It will show up on the category page, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. And then you have this ways to connect section. So ways to connect. We talked about this last week during our people pages and our program pages. So if there is a specific person at your station who blogs, for example, on the environment, you can choose to put their contact information here. Just as a reminder, if you wanted to put their Twitter, for example, you would put Twitter or find me on Twitter, and then the full URL of their Twitter page. If, for example, um, you wanted to put an email address, so email me, you would put that, for example, and then always remember you're putting that pipe in. And then for email, remember it's always mail to colon person at station. Always remember it's mail to colon for your email addresses. So we have our category. I'm going to hit save to save my new category. You notice you're going to see a green bar at the top, created new local term and the name of my term. And then for this example, remember for this exercise, we're creating two. So the second one we're creating is just called environment. And this isn't a best practice, but we're going to show in a second what you can do if you have two categories that do happen to have, that are, way too close in terms of name. They're basically duplicates of each other. So for this one, I'm not going to add any information. I'm just going to put in my title, environment, and then I'm going to hit save. All right, let's go back into our slides while everyone finishes creating their two categories, environment and local environment. So the time may come, for example, maybe someone not as deliberately as we just did in our example, but perhaps there may come a time where you notice you have two categories that are duplicates and can be merged together. Perhaps again, you have an arts and a music, or you have music and performance, and you want to merge those two categories together. You can do so in Core Publisher. Merging categories allows you to maintain a more focused category list. Again, going back to that newspaper analogy, makes it easier for your web contributors, for your content contributors to know where to put their content, and also for your web visitors to find that content on your site. So let's merge the two categories that we just created. We recommend reviewing your list of categories on a quarterly basis. So once your site is live every quarter, just go and take a look at the number of categories you have and just make sure that, there are no duplicates, none that can be deleted, just to keep things clean. So let's go and merge the two categories that we just created. So I'm going to go back into my test site. I'm going to ask you to pull up your site as well. And we are going to go back to that category page. This was the page that we got to by going to Configure Core Publisher and then selecting Manage Categories. So you'll notice that we have this Merge tab here, right next to List. I'm going to click on Merge. And I see now that I have all of my categories. You see that you have the name of the category, and then you have this column total used. This is going to show how many pieces of content you currently have that category, that are affiliated with that term. You can then see when the category was created, and then you have options, which would be which would be to edit that category. For this example, I'm going to merge two. And for this exercise, I'm going to ask you to do so as well. We're going to merge environment and local environment. So to do so, I'm going to check the two check boxes, and I'm going to click on the Merge Selected button. And it's going to give me the option to either merge these two terms into each other or to create a new alternate term. So for example, if you had a term or a category that was sustainability, and then you had another category that was sustainable living, and you wanted to put them into a category called sustainable news, you could put the new alternate term here, or you can choose to merge those terms one into the other. That's what we're going to do in this example. I'm going to take both my environment and local environment categories and simply merge them into environment by selecting the environment radio button. And then I'm going to hit save to save my merge. So it says finish merging. And when I go here, I notice that my local environment category is gone. And now all that we will see is the environment category. So again, we recommend doing that at least once a quarter, just to keep the area, just to keep your list clean and easy to manage. So as we mentioned earlier, each category page, every category that you create is going to have its own category page that can be added to your navigation or your footer. Let's take a look at a few examples of category pages on live core publisher sites. So what we're looking at first here, this is the environment and science category for michiganradio.org. The easiest way to find category pages on core publisher sites is to check their news drop downs, because that's normally where stations tend to put their category page links. And we do recommend that you do the same as well, to link to your category pages in a news drop down. You'll notice that underwriting shows up on all of your category pages as well from DoubleClick for Publishers. And this is just going to give you a river of all of the content that's the category, environment, and science. And you're going to see the most recent post at the top. And as we go down, we're going to start to see the older posts. Here's another example here. This is the business category page, again, found under news on kbia.org. And you see they've got business news here in the description. So if you do put a description for your category, it will show up right under the title. And also do note that the title of each category page is simply just the category. Not only news stations use category pages, our music stations do so as well. For example, WRTI.org, they have this arts desk category. This is where they put links to this is where all of their content as the category arts desk shows up. You see that their description is a little bit more filled out. They have a link to another page to some submission guidelines. And then the last one I wanted to show was from kucb.org. This is their crime category page. Again, you can access it through news. And I just wanted to note here that if you are a station that is planning to have an archive site that you're going to host outside of Core Publisher, you can always link to your archive in your category. So if you had, a crime or an arts or, a marine life page on your old site, on your archive site, and when you move over to Core Publisher, you can link to that archive in the description area, just so that your web visitors can get access to that older content if they're looking for it. All right. So that is module 2. In this module, what we did was we talked about our categories and we merged 2 categories together. So we created 2 categories, we merged them together to demonstrate how you would handle your duplicates. And we also reviewed category pages. A few work notes from this section. The first, remember your categories should be very broad topics. 5 is great. 10 may be too many. Again, always keep that newspaper analogy in mind when you are creating your categories. You can always merge your duplicate or related category terms. We recommend taking a look at those on a quarterly basis. And remember that links to your category pages, and there will be one for each category, can be added to both your Flexi menu or either of your footers. If you have like a logo or something like that, you can put it in to the partner logo footer. The auxiliary links footer can be used as well. So we have a question. How would you link to a category in the menu? Good question. You would just create the category first, and then up in the URL bar, you're going to see what the URL is, and you're going to add that to the navigation. And always remember that you're grabbing the auxiliary, the relative URL. So remember, you're always grabbing everything after the your call letters.drupal.publicbroadcasting.net. So normally your category pages are going to be term slash something. All right. So let's move on to our third module. We're going to talk about creating and managing tags now. So we talked about categories, which again are more broad terms. Your tags, remember, are going to be more specific. So in this module, we're going to introduce tags. We're going to demonstrate how to create and manage tags. And then we're going to take a look at tag pages. So the first thing to note is that, like your categories, your tags are also used to group content. And just like your categories, each tag has its own tag page. Tags are different from categories in that with your categories, you have to create those using that manage admin that we just showed. Your tags are actually created in two ways. You can either manually create your tags using an admin. I'm going to show you in 1 second, very similar to creating categories. But also, when you create a post and you add a tag to the post, if it doesn't already exist in the system, Core Publisher system for your site, it's going to be saved for future use. So some best practices for tags. The first is that tags are not smart. So you want to make sure that you're not duplicating your tags. So for example, the tag holiday with a capital H is not going to be seen as the same as holiday with a lowercase h. So those two tags will be saved as separate tags. In the same way, you want to create best practices for your tags to avoid duplication. So, for example, we've got a big election coming up. You want to sit down with your news team and decide, do you want to use election or election 2016 or just election 16 as the tag that you're using for any content that you're creating related to the election. Same thing if you have a local university like University of Maryland College Park. How do you refer to that? Do you refer to it as University of Maryland College Park or UMCP or College Park? You want to figure that sort of thing out with your news team in advance and set those sorts of rules to avoid duplication and to make things easy to manage. To help with that, the tag field on the post form is an autocomplete field. So if you started to type in, for example, election, like ELEC, then automatically you're going to see any tags that have a similar term. They're going to see them in the autocomplete dropdown, which can help to avoid with duplication. All right. So you're going to be creating and managing your tags in a very similar interface that to what you use to create and manage your categories. So let's log in to our sites and take a look at creating and managing tags. So again, this is our exercise for module 3. So everyone's going to go into their core publisher sites and we're going to be creating 2 tags. The first tag is arts and the second tag is going to be arts and culture. So while everyone else is getting set up, I am going to do the same. I'm going to go into our site and we're going to create now some tags. So right now I'm still on my category page from our last exercise. I'm going to go back to configure core publisher. I'm going to ask you all to do the same. And we're going to be selecting the Manage Tags option on the Configure Core Publisher page. It's right under Manage Categories under Content Management. So I'm going to click on Manage Tags. And I'll notice that right now my tags list is completely empty. Core Publisher does not come preloaded with tags, only categories. And we see that very similar link here up at the top, Add Term. So I'm going to click on that to create our first tag. And our tag is just going to be arts, ARTS. With your tags, again, you want to decide amongst your team if you want to use proper capitalization. It's completely up to your team what you decide to do. So for this exercise, you'll note that you can also add a description to a tag. We're not going to for this example, but you can. And there is also ways to connect sections, very similar to categories. You have the same option for your tags. I'm going to leave those blank for this exercise and hit save. And you'll notice that we see created new term and then the name of the term. We're also going to create one more in this exercise, arts and culture. So I'm asking everyone to do the same thing as well. And don't worry, you don't have to create all of the tags in this way. I'm going to show you the other way that tags are created as well. But as you're creating certain things like topic pages, there are some tags you may need to create manually in this way. All right, so now I have my 2 tags. I've created them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually merge these tags. We've created our 2 tags. Let's go back to Configure Core Publisher and go back to Manage Tags. I'm going to let everyone catch up as well. And while we do so, let's just take a look at the tags page. Again, very similar to what you're going to see for categories. I've got all of my tags here. I also have the option to edit them at any time. And it's going to be a lot more common that you're going to have to merge your tags together because your tags are something that is going to be added to on a very consistent basis. Only certain people probably are going to be adding categories to your site, but anyone who creates content can contribute to this tags list. And so there may come a time where something like this may happen where you have an arts tag and an arts and culture tag, or you have President Obama and Obama as a tag, or you have sustainability and sustainability spelled incorrectly, or something like that, with a capital S or missing a letter, and you need to merge those tags together. So to do so, we're just going to click on Merge. And again, this is very similar to dealing with your categories. I'm going to select the 2 tags that I want to merge. And then I'm going to hit the merge selected button. I'm going to ask everyone to follow along as well. And so what we all see here is that you've got your 2 terms, arts and culture. And again, you have the option to merge them into either a new term or to one of the terms that already exists. In this example, I'm going to merge them into an alternate term called arts and culture, but I'm going to use proper capitalization this time. And I'm going to hit save. So I notice now that on my tag page, I only have 1 tag that is my arts and culture tag, and everyone should be seeing the same thing as well on your sites. All right. The last thing that I wanted to show with tags was what a tag page looks like. So in the same way that you have your different category pages, you also have the same thing for your tags. To start, let's just talk about how you get to your tags. You can always add links to your tag pages to your navigation, but by default, on a post, for example, we're on mynspr.org. If I'm on this post here and I scroll all the way down to the bottom of this post, all the way down to the bottom, I see that I have a tags section here, and that I have a list of the tags that are associated with this post: wildfires, fires, and Butte County. If I was to click on wildfires, for example, it's going to take me to a tag page for the wildfires tag, and it's going to give me all of the posts on this site that have the tag wildfires. The same thing exists for every one of the tags on your site. And then the last thing I wanted to show before we go back into our slides is how different how tags can also be created. So this isn't a part of the exercise, so you don't necessarily have to follow along with this. I just wanted to show you as an example that when you are on the post form, and we're going to talk all about the post form next week, you see that we have this tags section here. So if I start to type in, for example, arts and culture, it's automatically going to suggest the arts and culture tag that I have already created. But if I'm creating a new tag, for example, like marine life, you'll notice that this tag doesn't already exist. It doesn't already exist. It's not going to auto suggest. But as soon as I save this post, this marine life tag is going to automatically be saved on my core publisher site and available to be used in the future on other posts. So keep that in mind when you're creating your content. Any tags that you create on the post form are going to be added to that managed tags list automatically. All right, we had a question come in that I'm going to answer as we go back to our slides. The question was, can you unmerge tags? Good question. Currently, you cannot unmerge your tags. So once you do make that merge on your categories or your tags, they're already merged. You can't make any changes to them. So keep that in mind when you are doing your merging. All right. So that is module 3. In this module, we created a new tag. In fact, we created 2 tags and then we merged our 2 tags together. And then we also reviewed tag pages. A few workflow notes from this section. The first, remember your tags are created in 2 ways, most commonly from the post form in that tag section that I just showed, and secondly, in that add tag page. Remember that your tags are not smart, and so kittens with a capital K and kittens with a lowercase k are going to be seen as 2 separate tags. So you are going to want to merge your duplicate or related tags. And we recommend doing this one on a monthly basis if possible. That tag list can get a bit unwieldy if you wait. So we do recommend on a monthly basis or every 2 months, just checking your list of tags and making sure that there aren't any duplicates or things that can be merged. And your tag pages as well can be linked to in your Flexi menu and your footer, but do remember that links to all of your tags that are associated with a specific post will show up at the very bottom. So let's see if we have any questions before we move on to our next module. All right, looks like no questions. Let's move on to module 4. In this module, we're going to be creating and managing your topic pages. So again, we started at the very top with our broad categories. Then we went to something a bit more specific, which was a tag. And now we're going to talk about how to group groupings of tags into topic pages. So we're going to introduce topic pages and also how to create and manage them. So a topic page is, or a topic, we use both terms interchangeably, is a way to gather posts on one subject using tags. So it's a way to create an aggregation based on up to 5. Topic pages can be used in several situations. You can use them for news series. You can use them as hubs of content for your local neighborhoods or counties or listening areas. If you have ongoing topics, elections, legislative changes, things around education, if you have maybe a concert or a speaker series, any sort of thing like that, you can use a topic page for. Topic pages are different from your category pages. With your topic pages, content is added automatically based up to 5 tags, and they can have custom titles. But remember, your category pages cannot have a custom title because the title of the category page is just whatever the category name is. And also, that content that's added to the category page is based just on one term. But they can both have a custom description and image. So you can add a custom image to a category page or a topic page, same thing with a description. And a topic is a piece of content. So unlike where we went to configure Core Publisher to create your categories and tags, we're actually going to go to the Add Content page to create a topic. All right, so before we get into our exercise, let's just take a look at um, some examples of topic pages in the Core Publisher universe. So the first one that I wanted to show, this is on michiganradio.org. It is called Bringing Up Detroit. For the most part, you will find that to find your category pages on live core publisher sites, they put them into areas that they call things like programs and specials or special topics or special coverage. That's normally where those topic pages end up on most sites. They can also show up under news. That just tends to be where people put them. Of course, you can put them anywhere, but most commonly that's where those topic pages end up on other sites. You'll notice that you have again that custom title, a custom image, the description. You can even put another image in the description area, and then also that ways to connect section. So in the same way that you can have ways to connect for people pages, program pages, category and tag pages, you can also have it for your topic pages. And Michigan Radio for this one has done a great job of adding things like podcasts, SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff to their ways to connect section. And then under that information, you just have the News River most recent story at the top. And again, underwriting will show up on your topic pages. You'll notice that for topic pages, the URL is usually topic/title. And then here's another example of a topic page. This is from news.wypr.org. And for this topic page, they just have their title and a description. And then again, you've got your content. And you'll notice that both of these topic pages are based on news partnerships, which is another great way to use your topic pages for news partnerships. But really, you can definitely get creative in what you use your topic pages for. But now we're going to actually create one. So we are going to create a topic page using one of the tags that we just created in our previous exercise. So in this exercise, we're going to create a topic page for our arts and culture news, and we're going to be using resources from the Dropbox folder that I shared with you earlier this morning. There's also a link to it in the chat window if you were not able to download those files already. So we're going to call our title page Beat Culture, and we're going to use the information in the Dropbox folder. So let's all go into our core publisher sites, and let's build our topic page. So the first thing that we're going to do to create our topic page is we are going to go to add content in our top gray and black admin bar because a topic is a piece of content. So once you're there, you're going to click on topic. And it's going to take you to your create topic admin page. The topic for this page for this exercise is called Beat Culture. And to find the body, I'm going to actually pause for a second. We're all going to open up the folder that I shared with you all, and there's just a short text description that we're all going to grab, and we're going to paste it into the description area. So let me see. I have that. Now I'm going to share my screen with you all, and I'm going to paste that in. Simple, plain text. If you had more information, if you wanted to put links, bulleted lists, bold, italics, you can put all of that information as well into the body section. Scrolling down, we have ways to connect. So let's put an email address in here. So email, and then the pipe, and then remember it's always mail to : and then we're going to put in our email address. This can just be a test email address for this exercise. And then also if you have an Instagram or a Twitter, let's just say we have Instagram for this example, we're going to put in the full URL of the page. So under topic assets now, this is where we're going to put our image that's going to show up at the very top. So we're going to go to select media, and we're going to go to browse, and let's all locate that folder on our desktops and our document folders, wherever it's showing up. And we're going to hit open. And I'm going to grab my logo. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. I meant to grab logo for topic page. That's the one we're going to be using, logo for topic page. It's going to upload that for us. And we're going to add, we're not going to do it for this example, but you do want to make sure that you're adding caption, credit, and agency for any images that you are using, that you're grabbing off the internet, or that someone is sharing with you. And now we're going to add our tags. So I'm going to start to type in arts and culture because that's the tag that we already created. Remember, you can have up to 5 tags separated by commas. For this example, we only have one tag that we've created so far, so we're only going to use one, which is fine, but remember, you can add up to 5. And now I'm going to hit save. And I noticed that now my Beat Culture page has been created. Um, you will not see any posts show up right now because you don't have any posts affiliated with your new tag. But once you do, once you create your first post and tag it with arts and culture, it's going to automatically show up on this Beat Culture topic page. All right. So everyone's finishing up with that. We're going to go back into our slides. And so that is module 4. In this module, we reviewed topic pages and we also created our own topic page. Remember some quick workflow notes for topic pages. The first is that up to 5 tags can be added to a topic page. So it can be 1, it can be 2, it can also be 5. Your topic pages can have a custom title, description, and image, as well as a ways to connect section. And I do recommend taking advantage of that. Your topic pages are somewhat like mini blogs on your site because they have more customization. And so you want to make them as eye-catching as possible. Sure, of course, you're going to have the title, but a description to give some context into what the topic page is about, an image or a logo, just to add a more graphic feel. And then the ways to connect section to allow your web visitors to connect with the folks who are creating that content is always a great idea. And remember that the tags that you're going to use for the topic page have to be created before you can create the page. So for right now, if you know you want to have a topic page where you want to take your bio life, marine life, and boating tags, for example, and put them onto one topic page, just go back to your manage tags page and create those automatically. And then you can create your topic page. So we have a question, how is a topic page different from a tag page? Good question. So a tag page is only one tag. So if you have an arts tag, the only content that's going to show up on that page is the arts content. Also, a tag page could have a custom title. So perhaps you didn't want to call your page arts, you wanted to call it WTST Local Arts News or Arts Beat or something like that. You couldn't customize the title of that page if it was just a tag page. So we have a question, is it true that only topics can have RSS feeds? I'm going to ask you to hold on to that question till our next module where we're going to talk all about RSS feeds and podcasts. That's a good segue, actually, to our final module for today, managing your podcast and RSS feeds. So in this module, we're going to introduce podcast and RSS feeds and then talk about how to manage them in Core Publisher. So first, what are RSS and podcasts? So an RSS feed, this is the sort of logo that's usually associated with RSS, and it's a way to deliver constantly updating web content. You can either subscribe to an RSS feed, you can use a feed reader, or you can just view the RSS feed at will. Podcasts, I'm sure most folks on this call are familiar with those. They're a way to deliver audio files in episodic fashion. So your RSS is going to be, images, text, audio. Your podcasts are just audio. You can subscribe to them through things like iTunes or Google Music, and then you'll automatically get new updates as the new episodes of the audio are added to the feed. In Core Publisher, RSS feeds are created for each program, category, tag, and topic page that has posts. So to answer the question that came in, yes, your topic pages will have an RSS feed, but so will your programs, categories, tags, they'll have them as well for any of your posts. Any posts that have audio are automatically fed into a podcast. So if you have a category page that has content, has posts, but none of the posts have audio, you're not going to have a podcast. But if you have a program page, for example, and you're uploading weekly interviews with the host and maybe a guest, that audio will be fed into a podcast. And you'll notice which pages have podcasts because they'll have this podcast and RSS tab. You'll see when you're logged in. You'll see it on your, again, program category tag and topic pages. The very first step to starting to use podcasts in Core Publisher is to set up your defaults. It is so important that you make sure that you set up these defaults before you start to work with any of your other podcasts. And so that is what we are going to do in this exercise. We're going to go into your sites and you're going to set up these defaults. I didn't provide hypothetical information here. I really want you to put your own information. If you don't have it, that's okay, but you will want to make sure to add it before you go live. So let's all go into our sites and let's create that information. So we're going to go to Configure Core Publisher in our top gray and black admin bar. And we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and the very bottom link is Podcast and Feeds Defaults. So this is where you're going to put any information that's going to be the default. If there is no podcast title or podcast description, this is what will go there, but that's not going to ever happen. The one thing that is most important on this page is the site email. So for our test, we have our test email address. For you, you're going to want to put the email address that you want to be associated with your podcast. This can be, and we don't recommend using a person's name. So it shouldn't be your name because you're the one who's building out the Core Publisher site. It should be something that's more generic, something that a lot of folks at your station will be able to see. Something like maybe podcast at yourstation.org or info at or webmaster at, something like that. Something that can be a more open email address that maybe multiple folks can have access to. This is going to show up on any of the third-party tools that you use to post your podcast. So you want to make sure that it is something a little more generic. Once you have entered the site email, you're just going to hit Save Configuration. I'm going to give you guys all a second to do that. Again, if you don't have the information right now, that's okay. But you will want to make sure to add this information before you start to submit your podcast to any sorts of third parties. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to go back into our slides while I'm giving folks a second to finish setting up with that. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, when you are logged into Core Publisher, you're going to see this podcast and RSS tab for any of your programs, categories, tags, and topic pages. That's where you're going to go to access that specific podcast. So if you had a podcast, if you had like a category page called Great Lakes and you wanted to see the RSS feed or the podcast URL for that page, this is where you would go to do that. So that brings us to our final exercise for today. So we've got one more exercise. This is it. We do recommend taking advantage of these third-party podcast pages like iTunes and Google Music as a way to extend the reach of your content. This is a great way to allow your current web visitors to access your content without necessarily having to go to your site. They can just subscribe to your local music podcast or your local news podcast, and they can access that content through their mobile devices. It's definitely a great way to extend your reach. That sort of stuff can get shared mobily, and that can also increase your audience. So definitely something to consider. So in this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to take the topic page that we just created for Beat Culture, and we're going to edit the podcast in RSS settings to make that page ready to be shared. We are going to call it WSRTs, or whatever your station is. Beat Culture, we're going to give it the design, performing arts category. All right, so let's go back into our sites for this final exercise. Give me 1 second to get to that page. In the meantime, I'm going to ask everyone else to go back to that topic page that we just created. I have mine still open in a separate tab. And so what you see is you have this podcast and RSS tab. I'm going to click on that. And at the very top, it gives me two URLs, RSS and podcast. So if I just wanted to put this URL into my ways to connect section, for example, if I wanted to put subscribe to our RSS feed or subscribe to our podcast in ways to connect, I could do so by just grabbing one of these URLs here. We then have the option to override certain information about this feed. So the first is the image. By default, it's going to just use whatever image you uploaded for the page. But do note that iTunes is very specific about the image size that they want for podcasts. The minimum accepted size is 1400 by 1400. So you want to make sure that you have an image that big. If you don't, that's okay. You can override it and put in a new image that will only show up in the podcast. That's what we're going to do in this exercise. We're going to click Select Media and go to Browse. And in that training folder that we all got from Dropbox, there is a logo for podcast. You want to select and submit that. All right. You then have the title. You can choose to just use the title that is the same title as your topic page. If you want something a bit more specific, like I want this to have my call letters in it, I can change it. And it's only going to change it again in the podcast. It's not going to change it on my main topic page. I can then override the URL. By default, it's going to just be whatever the URL is. If I'm fine with that, I'm going to just leave that alone. And then description, I can choose to either just use the description from my topic page, or if I want to have something more custom, I can put that into the description field. The last thing that you want to make sure that you do before you save your podcast is under podcast category, you want to select the category. Now, this podcast category is not related at all to your core publisher categories. This is related to the drop down that iTunes uses to categorize their podcast. So you want to select the one that closely fits your podcast. This example, we're going to select performing arts. And then we're going to hit save to save our changes. So we're going to save the changes that we made to, again, our arts and culture, or our beat culture topic page. And these same steps, again, you're going to do these for any of the topic pages, program pages, categories, tags that you want to submit to iTunes. But remember, you can always just go up here to the top of the podcast and RSS tab to grab either URL. All right. So let's finish up. So that is module 5. In this module, you reviewed podcast and RSS feeds. You set up your core publisher podcast and RSS feed defaults. And if you did not have an email address, that's okay. You do know now that you definitely want to make sure that you set that up. We also experimented with editing some of the default settings on the podcast and RSS feeds page. Some quick workflow notes. The first is you want to confirm your defaults are set up before submitting a podcast, specifically that email address. And you want to use, again, podcast or news or info at instead of a person's name. Your podcast from Core Publisher, again, they can be submitted to any third-party podcast site. We do recommend taking advantage of that. And your podcast and RSS feeds are again created for every program, category, tag, and topic page that has posts. So we had a question that came in earlier. And the question was, is a blog category a reasonable way for a station to host a blog that is posted to by multiple hosts, or is a topic page a better choice? Good question. So something like this, you want to think about, where else do you want that content to show up? Is this content, for example, that they're going to be creating, but you want it to show up on a category or a program page, but you also just want it to show up on this blog? If so, I would recommend using a topic page. But if they're only creating this content solely for this blog, you could choose to use a category page. But if you want to be able to add a custom image, a custom title, and make it have more of a blog feel, I would recommend using a topic page. All right. So some next steps and homework for this week. The first is to create the main categories that represent the content that your station focuses on, even if you just write them out on paper, although I do recommend adding them to your site. You don't need to create every tag you think you'll ever use, but if there are specific topic pages that you want to create, you're going to want to create the tags and then the topic pages, just for those specific ones. Confirm that your streaming is working on your core publisher site on both desktop and mobile. This isn't necessarily related to anything that we talked about, but you still just want to make sure that it does work, that your streams work on your core publisher site on both desktop and mobile. And then lastly, continue to work on the other things that we've talked about so far: your flexi menu, your footers, your header, your programs, your people, and your pages. So just to recap what we talked about today, in our third training, Organizing Your Content Flow, we did an introduction to categories and tags. We talked about managing your categories, tags, and your topic pages. And we finished up by talking about managing your RSS feeds and your podcast. So we have about 3 minutes left if anyone has any other questions. Yep, so we've got a question. And also, while that question is coming in, just some extra housekeeping. You want to make sure again that you are keeping up on those assignments from last week's. You know, the all the pages, the navigation, the header, and whatnot. We are coming up on your halfway point, so make sure that you are working on that. And if you have any other questions about how you can specifically use category tags and topic pages, feel free to bring them to our check-in calls later this week. Um, so we have a question: what are the differences between categories and topics, and what exactly you can put on the page? What are the differences in permissions for what can be connected to those? Good question. They are pretty much exactly the same. Your categories and your topics, they can only have posts. And your categories are basically just all the content with one category. Your topic pages are all the content with the 5 tags that you chose. And there is no difference in the permissions. Any content either created locally or from the NPR Story API can be added to either a category or a topic page. There is no difference. All right. So it looks like we're coming up on the end. If you guys have other questions, again, feel free to send them to me via email, give me a call, or save them for our weekly check-in calls later this week. I look forward to seeing your ideas for how to use these different ways to organize your content, and I will talk to you all later this week. Bye.